In some areas, they call that production value. We want to thank everyone for stopping by tonight. It's Thursday. It's the fastest night of the internet. You're listening to Night Terrors Radio. As always, I am Ash Hamilton, your ever vigilant guest, host, and curator of www.horror-fix.com. That's horrorfix.com. I've got Rob Pastilli, our East Coast attendant, coming in with us tonight. How you doing, Rob?
I am on the mend. Feeling better. How you doing?
I'm glad to hear it. So did you get the curve out of it, or what did they do to it?
Essentially, it was, a little problem with the implant. That's basically what it came down to.
It was at the pump?
Yeah.
Right. It was letting the air out in the wrong direction?
Yes. It's exactly what
socially, that's a no-no.
Right.
It's a faux pas. EJ was looking at us like she does not have time for this shit. How are you doing tonight, EJ?
Doing great. How are you?
We're fine. EJ's got her lips on, looking very demure tonight, EJ, if I might say so myself.
Thank you.
I do, and also,
you know what? I almost shaved. Go ahead, Rob.
You almost shaved?
Of the four usual hosts, EJ is the only one that's, emotionally and mentally over 14.
Just barely, but yes, that's correct.
Right, yeah. I do still have my name in my underwear when I wear it, if that makes sense. So we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. We have Dawn and Valerie from Second Sight Paranormal Investigations. We're going to have a great night talking to them tonight about sort of what goes bump in the night, how they bump back, and some of their investigations and what they've seen. We can't wait to hear from them. But first, it's been a long week. Things have happened in the United States of America that we need people to know about. They might not want to know about them, but we'll tell them anyways. This is the news that you did not want to hear, but yet you'll know after you hear it why you didn't want to. You'd think we knew what we were doing with all these fantastic interstitial video bits that we've created, but it's all smoke and mirrors. Bringing you the news from across America. This is Night Terrors Radio. We have a couple great segments lined up for you that you may or may not want to hear about. This is when you either turn the volume all the way down or just decide that this isn't quite for you. And I can see as our numbers dwindling, you've done just that. Thank you, America. EJ, do you want to go first? I think you've got a great story lined up for us tonight, correct?
Sure, yeah. I'll go first. This is actually across the pond in the United Kingdom. There was an excavation done recently.
They found Boris Johnson's comb.
No, I'm very sorry to hear that. Very sorry to say that did not happen. However, there was an excavation at a housing estate there in the middle of England, and they actually uprooted a body that was found in a very old fish pond. Apparently, the body was not buried there. It may have been redeposited there, however. So it seems as if there was a murder, perhaps, which as a true crime fan, that's very interesting for me. So it looks like a medieval murder may have occurred. They did locate some other things, but I would dare say that body is probably the most interesting so far.
Did they put a time frame on it?
Time frame 13th to 14th century.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See? Now, before the show, you had mentioned the location was kind of
close to an abbey. So they believe that this was a wealthy area with merchants and high-level church leaders in the area. Yep. So
well, still with some medieval murder mayhem, if I can add a little bit of alliteration there.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
and that's all I've got.
That's interesting. I didn't find a lot on the investigation about the body, but I would love to look more into that.
It just seems like you said, being located near an abbey, at the bottom of a fish pond.
Yep.
It just didn't accidentally get there.
No, they redeposited it. So it was probably hidden there, and then something was built over it.
Yeah, so someone didn't want that to be found.
Right. Exactly.
So even 1,300 years ago.
I will say it would be interesting if that was actually the plot that they picked out. You know, they're sitting there, the sun's going down, they're just thinking about life in general, and suddenly it goes, you know, I got to tell you, I think this is where I want to be, right across from the Abbey under the fish pond.
In the fish ponds. Yeah, that's where I'd like to be buried personally, so I get it.
When that orange haze and night falls over you, just put me right in the fish pond.
Right in the
and
fish
the flea bites in your...
And I'm not being coy. Oh, God.
Oh, God.
With the fish.
Where's Grayson?
Have a great night, folks.
That joke.
I'll see you next Thursday.
Right.
Grayson would have loved that joke. Where is he?
Oh, my God.
My little guy is actually with his grandparents this week. He had a birthday. His 10th birthday was on the 12th. And for his birthday each year, my parents live about 2.5, 3 hours away. They come over and he goes with them for a week and they spoil him. And he comes back an absolute nightmare.
Sure does.
Yeah, he's been like mainlined sugar and like all the foods he wants to eat, and he gets to stay up late. And you know, grandma's a very loving grandma, so he comes back and he's like, Dad, why are you such a dick? Like, well, looks like we got a whole new year to unwind. It's gonna be all right, Grayson. Yeah, but no, he's there. So yeah, July 12th was his 10th birthday.
Nice.
So what about you, Rob? Coming in hot on the heels of medieval murder mayhem, what do you got for us?
America's second favorite cryptid, and personally my favorite cryptid. Again, we're not going to single out any race, gender, anything else like that. We're just going to go with Florida person to keep it cool.
We're going to keep it cool.
Florida person surprised by uninvited iguana in their toilet. The only reason I chose this story is for one word. Do you know what that word is?
Uninvited.
Uninvited. You know me oh so well, EJ.
I do. Otherwise, it would be uninvited.
So it would be like, hey, Fred Iguana, you're in. Bill the Iguana, you're in. Sally the Iguana, you're in. Jack the Iguana, right here, buddy, you're not in. You're not on the list. Velvet rope. Uninvited iguana in the toilet.
Yep.
I just want to hear like the discussion in the bullpen at the newspaper. And I know they don't have traditional bullpens anymore, but in my mind, it's still like the 1940s. They're all sitting around smoking cigarettes with fedora hats on. And somebody's like, hey, what about that iguana story, Ron? And Ron's like, yeah, definitely going to go on in the toilet. And then, of course, Dave comes in and is like, that wasn't invited or uninvited, because we know what happened last week. That was uninvited, Ron. And then that's how it works, where they actually have to put uninvited in there, because the story the previous week, we know it was a formal invitation.
Right.
That's how I think the bullpen works.
I don't give a shit about the rest of the story. Nothing. Could care less. It was that opening line. Having lived in Florida for a short time and owned a house in Floral City, Florida, which is kind of inland and a little bit north of Tampa, we had lizards, frogs, you name it, alligators. The guy next door to us had an alligator on his screen porch. Never an iguana in the toilet. Never. I never sent out those invitations.
Here's... Did anybody also notice that my version of a bullpen, everyone sounds like Fred Gwynn in Pet Sematary? Oh, you don't want to write that story, right? Why in my brain populate the entire bullpen with Fred Gwynn? It's like I don't know. There's something broken in there.
What you want to do, Lewis, is you want to get the iguana local invitations down at Potty City. You head on down to Banga, and you go down there, and when you get there, you get to Potty City, and you get your invitations, and the iguana in the toilet potty.
Yours was a little regal, too.
Well, again, the weird places that I've lived. I lived in Maine.
Your Fred Gwynn resides at a lush palatial estate.
No, they
I
all
could
sound
hear
that way.
in his voice.
Now,
Not
when you
1313
get up,
Mockingbird Lane, but a lush palatial estate.
once you get up
We've got
past Bahama, as soon as you get past
you don't want to go down
Bahama,
there. We've got a fantastic
can.
show lined up. We've got Don and Valerie. There was Second Sight Paranormal Investigation, and there's a forensic spin on this that I also cannot wait to talk about. So EJ is going to have a whole hell of a lot of fun with that. Without further ado, we have Don and Valerie with us tonight. How are the two of you doing? And the fact that you have not run screaming with your hands over your head from the show, I have to commend you both. Thank you for your persistence.
You're welcome.
What can you say? We've heard worse.
So now we got to try harder? Damn it.
All right.
Well, we were doing so well.
I'm always up for a challenge.
Right? Hey,
So-
Ash,
Yeah.
can we change the layout so the speaker is our main person?
We can do both Don or Valerie. That's what I've got on right
I
now.
don't like whoever's speaking. It doesn't pop up. Can you not do it that way?
I have no clue. We're gonna see. We're gonna see what we can do here.
I love
Gotta make
it.
something happen.
That'd be a little
Everything we
easier.
did in the beginning of the
Follow.
show to set up our tech production value, it's right in the uninvited
It's-
iguana toilet right now.
Yep.
It's all done. It's absolutely done.
It got the invitation.
Fucking EJ throwing a goddamn wrench in the works. I swear.
Someone's got to do it. You
Here we
guys
were
aren't.
building all these video segments. We've got them all lined up. I'm super proud of it. I'm beaming, and then she's like, "Hey, your layout sucks."
I'll say it that way next time.
All right. Could
Just
you please?
screeching halt to the show, EJ.
All right. Well,
Well, if I put it-
I'm going to go on with questions while
It's
EJ
the,
is
it's
just
the
screeching
lipstick. I
halt to the
swear to
show.
God.
Oh,
So, paranormal investigation. It is. It's definitely near and dear to my heart. It is something that I am, absolutely involved in. Can you give us a little background on how you got involved in paranormal investigation? Could you both, maybe take a couple minutes and throw that at us?
For me, things just kind of started when I was little. Like my very first encounter, or maybe encounters, or me staring at caskets as a kid, trying to see if the body was breathing. I was a very weird kid and loved going to funerals with my grandmother. And then I think I was about, 8 or 9. I had a neighbor who passed away. And after his funeral, I was looking out the back window and he was walking by, stopped, waved at me, and then walked into the woods. So that's what sparked my whole paranormal interest. And fast forward some years later, I won't say how many because I won't date myself. I saw Erica's ad on Facebook looking for, certain people with certain skills to be on her paranormal team. And that's how I became the crime expert of Second Sight Paranormal.
So how about you, Don, as far as your interests in the paranormal? How far did they run? How early did this happen? I'm always very, very curious to hear about when people sort of first got that bug to become involved.
Yeah, I mean, I was like Valerie. I was a weird kid. I talked to myself a lot, or talked to myself in the mirrors a lot, and which Erica has later told me that was kind of a thing. It wasn't until I was about 18 years old. My parents moved us in this house. It was a couple hundred years old. Had fireplaces in every room. That's how it was heated. It was really haunted, and that was the first experience I really ever had. One sat right down next to me on the bed, and I couldn't move. I couldn't. It just, I kind of finally was able to look over, and I could see the butt print and where the feet were kind of going over the bed. And then I was a believer. It scared me to death, and I ran down the stairs. My parents were like, "There's not a ghost up in your room," but there was definitely a ghost in the room, and it came back a lot after that. So Yeah. So for many years, jump forward, lots of years, lots more than Valerie. And here I am on the team with Erica, and same thing. I saw her Facebook ad. I had gone to one of her gallery readings and met her and stuff like that, and we just all kind of hit it off at the beginning, and we've been working together ever since. It's been good.
Are you all women?
We have a couple guys on the team.
Males on the team, yeah,
but mostly women.
Mostly
that
women.
seems to be the theme. That
Ghost
seems to be the
divas.
theme.
I dig it.
Those girls.
Well, my team, there's
Hashtag Ghost Girls.
Yeah.
Just right in the
it's, believe me, there's already a group called Ghost Girls. I guarantee it's somewhere in the world, somewhere within 10 miles of one of us. It's weird. Like, there's 3 guys on our team and 6 ladies. So I don't know why that is. I think maybe it's because women have a more rational mind, and we tend to be infantile.
Yeah, probably. I think we're more sensitive to things.
Could be the intuition as well. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think women are
there is a
open
group
to believing it, and open to receiving the messages, and open to letting someone speak to you, where most guys are like, you know.
yeah.
I've also been told that it is, and I want your opinion on this, just because coming from that world, coming from that field, that it could be a maternal thing, that the maternal aspect comes through a little bit more, so you'll come across like a younger spirit, or a spirit that is, in kind of, I want to say trouble, that's a bad word, but it's kind of, in between, and having that, female presence, that maternal spirit is kind of a light, or a doorway for them.
I believe
that.
We actually did an investigation where there was a lot of children that seemed to come around all the ladies, the spirits of the children. Remember that, Valerie?
Well, mostly, definitely mostly mothers. There are a lot of mothers on our team. So these particular spirits were definitely coming out of the woodworks and trying to talk to all the moms, because I guess they felt their motherly energy and missed their own moms, and some probably even reminded them of their mom. So that was pretty amazing. That was an amazing night.
Do you think that masculine energy, like if there were more male investigators, would seem maybe more challenging to spirits? Do you think that I mean, because there definitely is a sense of more sort of like hyper competitiveness when it comes to how literally dumb most of us are as men. And that's me even being diplomatic.
I
think it could go both ways, because one time one of the guys that was investigating with us had on a hat, and it seemed like the male spirits were more riled up when he was in the room with his hat on and stuff than it was when the women were in the room. So I have seen that.
And it turned out that particular spirit, because of course Erica was there and could talk to this particular spirit, and it also turns out that particular spirit was from a time when you were inside, you took your hat off. So that was kind of what triggered him.
It's interesting that you should say that, because I think that's something that a lot of people forget about. I think that a lot of people forget about, we're not just dealing with personalities that are 50, 100, 200 years old. We're dealing with personalities that were aware of certain trends during their lifetime, aware of certain customs. I think, because we're so sort of ethnocentric in our time and in our lifetime, I think we forget that. As an investigator, do you find yourself having to sort of remind yourself that?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. It's because you forget that, these spirits are still in their time, basically. Yeah, we've built things around, and what it looks like to us is not what it necessarily looks like to them. it still looks like what it was to them. So
Yeah, and I tend to cuss a lot, and we were in a cemetery doing some stuff in a really old cemetery, and we were walking around, and I was cussing. I don't really remember what I said, but over the spirit box, we got language, I was like, oh, I forget. They didn't cuss like that back then,
Yeah.
You got to be a little more respectful.
I was going to say that, we actually had an investigation. I live in Rochester, New York, okay, which is the home of Eastman Kodak, the photography, basically the home of photography. And I asked a stupid question in an investigation. I asked, do you know what photographs are? And I got a really sarcastic EVP that came back and went, yes. So, we like, okay, yeah, dumbass. You're in Rochester, New York. Of course they know what photographs are. But, it was just one of those weird things that, like you said, you have to remember that you're going through, and sometimes you could be looking at a house that's 200 years old. I don't know. What are the ages of the houses that you guys have in your area? Do you get anything that old?
Yeah, there's a lot of old places around here, especially in Pensacola.
Yeah. So you've been there, on one plane looking at 100 years ago and be dealing with something that was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And so those planes can get very confusing, and, have to be able to negotiate all that,
Mm-hmm.
It's good that you guys have that broad spectrum of investigators.
So
We have a very diverse team.
Is it believed that spirits do not evolve or learn beyond their lifetime? Are they not able to understand what's happening currently, for example?
no, I believe they can learn and understand. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to connect with us with certain equipment. So definitely there is some comprehension beyond their time. But they are still just, in their time, though. So
Interesting.
What would you say is your favorite EVP that you've captured?
My favorite one wasn't actually a Second Sight investigation. I actually lived in an old house in Pensacola. It was over 100 years old. And we just kind of did some investigating one night. And at the end, we had a couple cameras set up, one next to a Ouija board and one across the room. And it was night vision. And when it was all, you could see the one across the room looking at us, and you could hear us on the other camera. But when it was over and we played it back after we said, thank you, goodbye and everything, as plain as day, right next to that camera, it said, thank you. Just like, and we were the only ones in the room. And it wasn't on the camera by the Ouija board. It was only by the one on the other side of the room. So we knew it was legit because we were talking and it was over our voice. So it was really cool. It was my house. So, it was kind of cool.
And did it have that sort of voice inflection, that a little lilt there at the end?
It did. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Just like that.
Really, I love that you remember that.
Thank you. And yeah.
Huh.
Now, I believe you're going to say something, Valerie.
I was going to say, strangely enough, my favorite EVP actually happened in Dawn's house as well.
Wow.
That's funny.
Dawn used to live in a house that was, built over a plantation? What used to be a plantation or something?
There was a plantation there. It's a historic road. There's all these trees that go like this where you drive under, because the owner of the plantation built that as his driveway. There were a lot of slaves and stuff there. I had at least 3 spirits in my house. Eric has told me some of them and whatever, but I knew they were there. I gave them coffee every morning. I was nice to them because they didn't mess with me, and they actually helped me a little bit and stuff here and there. But they were all good, but definitely stuff happened in that house.
This particular night, we had actually just begun Second Sight, and we were kind of there learning different equipment and everything. And I always forget what it's called, but it's the equipment where one person's wearing the headphones and the other person's asking questions, but the person with headphones can't hear what's being asked.
Yeah.
And well, I've heard you guys curse, so I guess it's okay to curse. But
by all means.
So we had one team member that had on the headphones, and one of the slave boys, I think,
It was
It's
me
like
that had the
something-
headphones on.
Huh?
I had the headphones on.
No, Sabrina had the headphones on.
Oh, okay.
And this for what I'm talking about,
Oh, okay.
Sabrina had the headphones on, and we asked it something about, why are you going over to her? Do you like her? And we heard, I don't know this bitch.
It really did.
That stands out. And I remember her
Yeah.
taking off the headphones and saying, well, what did y'all ask it? So, yeah.
Well, in that same night, because it said that boy said he was 14 years old and he was a slave boy in the house. And I remember I had the headphones on and y'all were asking questions, and I remember saying ha ha, and you guys started laughing, and I was like, what? And they asked it if he watched me change clothes, and it said ha ha.
Oh, what is that saying?
Yeah. He just said ha ha.
Yeah.
Nice.
14-year-old boys, they don't change.
No.
No,
no matter the time.
exactly. Exactly.
So
Is it okay?
we
So
we
it
were
sounds
given
like you
access-
guys have a.
Go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, it sounds like you guys have a very good rapport in your group, that you all can get along, and that you kind of can feed off each other, and you can feed off the energy of each other. And I was just about to dive into the access that Ash was mentioning, that we were given some access to a couple of case files that you had posted. And I was just wondering how do you divide up? How do you set your teams to go into a location?
Do we though? We just kind of, I don't know. We just kind of separate. I mean, it's just weird. We just kind of separate. Okay, well, we're going to go over here and we're going to go over here and we're going to go over here. And you just know where you're going, what the history of it is, or some history, not all history. And so that you can ask the proper questions in that particular area that you're at. Yeah, I don't know that we really.
Well, that's not always the same.
We're all just intuitive with each other. I don't know.
Yeah. Not the sometimes people don't come, so we don't always know who's going to be there, and so we kind of wait and see who all shows up, and then we just kind of, who's got this equipment, who's got that equipment, and we just kind of go off and do our thing, and then the cameraman kind of goes around and films people randomly throughout the night.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of sounds like a couple of couples counseling sessions I had once. And I never got paid for the videos either. Yeah. All I know is that my screen name Irish Steel didn't sit well with people.
What is it?
Irish Steel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently I didn't, it was an industry I wasn't well equipped to be part of. So let's go ahead and move on to the actual case file that we were looking at. So one thing that I thought was very interesting as soon as I looked at it was this idea, malevolent entity. And not that that's where we always want to put our attention, is when things are terrifying or things are negative, but obviously it does grab your attention when you see certain terminology like that, malevolent entity. Now, were you both involved in that particular case?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you walk us through where that was, what that was, and sort of give our audience an idea of what happened there?
That was at a very prominent, affluent part of town. It's called Scenic Bluffs. It's right on the beautiful scenic highway where, the ocean and the cliff is on your left-hand side as you're driving, or if you're coming the other way, of course, right. But yeah, very beautiful area, very prominent area. However, there's a park. It's basically a park, sort of, and people go out there, they walk, they run, they hike, do all kinds of things, and that's great during the day. But at night, there's definitely something very sinister in those woods.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of murder, lots of death, train wrecks, car crashes, and lots of death there. There was an entire Native American tribe that was slaughtered there. So there was a lot of death in that part.
Yeah, a lot of history there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of crime and tragedy.
So walk us through the investigation then. So obviously you've and I see what you've done. Like the basically this dossier you put together is very involved. So you're doing a lot of research. You recognize that there's a history. So how did you approach the investigation, and give us sort of a play-by-play of the investigation itself, if you could?
So first things first, of course, we did our research to find out what had happened there. The place was actually called El Diablo, and I'm not good with Spanish, but it translated to Devil's Point, I believe. So yeah, just we did our research and found out that, there'd been plane crashes, there'd been train wrecks, murders. There'd been one particular airman who was stationed here, and he had a car crash in like one of the next neighboring cities, but his body literally floated to this area. There was a poor fella who was on the train tracks, got run over. There's just a lot. There were a guy got beaten for like a very minimal amount of money by some kids. There was a homeless situation not too long ago. Just a lot of, like I said, a lot of crime and tragedy there. So we did our research for all of that, and did our research regarding the Native American tribe that was on the grounds long ago. We actually went to two totally different spots. The first spot we went to was the chimney, which actually used to be, I can't remember.
A sawmill, lumber mill. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first place that we went, and then we journeyed down the cliff to the actual water. This particular night, I think we did actually have a plan of who was going to go where and who was going to do what. We started off on the train tracks once we got to the actual wooded area, and had our spirit boxes out, K2 meters, just trying to connect with spirits. And as dust fell, it got creepier and creepier and creepier and more sinister. Yeah, honestly.
And are you physically feeling that? I mean, a lot of people claim that they start getting just inundated, like it's something that sort of comes into their pores, seeps into their skin, this feeling of dread. Yes,
absolutely. I know for me that was it. That for me that was absolutely it. It just kind of felt dreadful, felt like I shouldn't be there, felt like we needed to leave. I think I said that a couple of times, but no one listened, because I'm usually always the one who wants to leave. I'm from criminal justice, so I prefer having a folder on whatever it is so that I know what to expect. So yeah, that's definitely what it felt like for me. What about you, Don?
I mean, that was the only investigation that we've done that I actually felt scared at any point. I mean, you feel a little weird sometimes when you go places, but that time, I think if you, I don't know if you watched it or not, but there were several times that I'm like, I keep feeling like I kept looking behind me. There just felt like there was somebody behind us all the time. And I got touched on the back of the head 3 times, and then had a headache for many days I couldn't get rid of. And so I got touched, and it was always behind you. And one time I even took a light and kind of shined it behind our backs, because I kept turning around so much to see if there was something back there. It was just it was a major chest height. It gave you a lot of anxiety. It was not a good feeling. I've been in the presence of a lot of spirits. That one gave me a lot of anxiety. I didn't want to go to the hole, I ended up going up there anyway with everybody else, but I remember saying I don't really want to go up there, because I felt weird. I didn't want to go up there. But it was really creepy. We all paid for it later, and
Yeah. So here's the thing with the hole. We were actually called to go into the woods. We literally on the spirit box, the most terrifying voice I think I've ever heard told us, come into the woods. You need to go to the woods. And we would confirm it. Do we need to go to the woods? Yes, come to the woods. So we went to the woods. And
see, Rob, I'm not the only person that tells you that.
once we got into
you just
the
keep
woods,
telling your lost puppy there.
Was
In
it
the
a
van?
male voice or a female voice talking to you?
The main voice was male.
I would call it demonic. I wouldn't even call it male or female. I would call it personally demonic.
Wow.
Because it was something that we've never heard before.
That was talked about. We did hear that voice at the chimney. It said something about the hole at the chimney. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then, so we ended up going to the railroad tracks, and then on the tracks it mentioned the hole and it mentioned the woods again. So we got lured. We got lured back there, and we did. We went back. We heard Satan a couple times. We heard cuss words. We heard, the guy that got killed there by the 3 boys that all went to prison. His name was Dean, and Dean's voice came through. He told us he was hit. He told us he was robbed. He
Dean was the one who was shot in the back of the head.
Is that who it was? Okay.
Yeah, that was Dean. I don't remember the guy who got beat. I don't remember his name, unfortunately.
Okay.
I do remember Dean was the one who got shot execution style in the back of the head.
Okay.
And he showed up and said his name for us to
Yeah.
confirm, yes, I'm here. We had one particular person who got touched. I don't know if you've actually watched the investigation or not, but he actually got grabbed at the hole. But previously, this voice had told us, I want him, talking about the person who got grabbed.
At the chimney, I think it was.
Yeah. And he's a daredevil. So he's always gung-ho to go in and go. So yeah, he was like, let's go to the hole. And he went to the hole and he got close to it and it literally grabbed him. You could see the handprint on his leg.
I took a photo of it.
Yeah. And I think you can see it in
any idea
why? As an experiencer.
Well, why, to answer the question, why, I don't, we heard that there was a lot of, people doing crazy stuff in the woods, devil worshiping, things like that. We don't know if that's what brought that spirit there or what, but whatever it was, it's was very evil. The voice in the spirit box, it just sounded so different from all the rest of them, like a, I don't know, like a demonic. It was just, it was scary.
And it was very evident that it fed off of all of the crime and tragedy that happened there. Like it was like it was luring crimes and tragedies to it. Case in point, the guy who had the car wreck in this neighboring town, but his body actually floated to this spot. Almost like it was drawn there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that entity definitely fed off of all of that criminal and tragic energy. And
I like that.
But when we were trying to talk to some of those other spirits, they would get quiet when the malevolent one would, when it would come on. And I think somebody asked it, is that other spirit keeping you from talking to us? And they were like, absolutely, or something like that. I can't remember if that was the right word, but so we kind of think that, he fed off of them and kind of kept them in place. Like you can't tell them anything. Don't tell them what's going on.
Wow.
And at one point we heard Native American chanting, almost as if they were trying to protect us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I like that you use the word entity because, as you probably know, Ted Bundy's last arrest actually occurred in Pensacola, off on Cervantes Street. right there at Oscar's Cafe. And he often used the term entity to describe his dark side. So the fact that there's also Bundy was also connected in some way to that area. Do you know where Cervantes is located?
Yes, and we have actually eaten at that restaurant many times. It's not Oscar's anymore, but we've eaten in that building many times.
Have you ever felt
investigation
out there?
Have what now?
Have you ever felt anything out there? I mean, that wasn't his final arrest. He actually traveled a little bit further before he was finally arrested. But
I personally have not, but I know for a fact that Erica has. In our pilot episode, she actually did that building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She connected with one of the victims there.
What's that?
She connected with one of the victims at that site where they caught.
Oh, really? One of the Tallahassee or Lake City?
I don't know. Which one was that? I don't know.
No. Okay. Because there was one that was a 12-year-old girl, and then there were two of the sorority sisters. So I didn't know if you meant like one of them, but that's fascinating.
Do you have a question, Rob?
Yeah.
Well, I have a two-parter. As an experiencer of having been touched by something, that I actually had 4 perfect fingerprints on this neck and a perfect thumb on this side, and it kind of dropped me to my knees in the middle of the investigation. And I was able to go back and look at it and say, well, you're being a cocky jerk. You were not presenting yourself in a positive way to whatever might have been. Now, you said that there one guy that got kind of grabbed around the leg and left Marty kind of a daredevil. Do you feel that may have curbed in him a little bit? And if you don't feel that as him, how do you yourselves then kind of watch him and while when he's doing his thing?
I do personally, just speaking for myself, I do think that may have been a part of it. But I don't think he purposely antagonized it. He just gets really into it and gets excited about it. And, sometimes people speak excitedly and other people interpret it wrong. So I think that
energy put out the energy that can
what happened? I didn't catch that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like the energy, the energy you put out is the energy that can come back. So if you go into it with a high energy, then high energy can come back.
Right. Yeah. Because when it comes to investigations, he's definitely high strung. So yeah, I can definitely see that. However, I did not go to the hole. I actually stayed back with a crew member because they'd left some equipment and things over there. And I remember distinctly hearing things going on at the hole, but I was way too preoccupied to where I was because myself and the crew member kept hearing like footsteps around us, but there was nothing there. And I don't know if it was trying to chase us away so there wouldn't be witnesses, or I'm not really sure what that was about. So yeah, that was a little scary in itself.
So one thing that EJ is communicating, because EJ is very interested in the forensic angle, and wanted to learn a little more about that. And I know EJ can communicate her questions much better than I can. But so what is the forensic angle as far as your investigations?
For instance, what do you, as far as crimes that are committed, how much do you learn about those crimes? How much do you think that the spirits might be locked into that area because of a crime committed against them?
Honestly, we haven't done a lot of crime. We haven't done crime scene investigations like we're a fresh crime. Everywhere we've gone has been, there might have been crimes that were there in the past. But no fresh crimes. We've not done anything like that.
Yeah, and even if it was a crime there, that wasn't our focus, if that makes sense.
But it sounds like you interacted with some people that had been victims of crimes. For example, the one that shot in the head. Do you learn anything about that person, about their history?
We try not to deep dive so much that it influences the investigation. We want to know what happened to them. We want to know who they were, possibly why they were at the location. But as far as a deep dive, I don't really want to go too deep because I don't want it to influence the investigation. And I think we all feel that way.
You kind of want them to tell you.
Right. Yeah. We want them to tell us.
Gotcha.
Oh, we gotta get the basics before
going in. Yeah, just know the basics, just so you know which questions to ask that will trigger a response.
Cool.
So there's a little something that we do on the show, and basically we try to do as much as absolutely possible because, again, we love crude humor. So one thing that we're always interested in is that moment, either during an investigation or during independent study or whatever, that sort of changed either the way you think or had a huge, huge impact on you going forward. And we call it the pant shitometer.
Pant shitometer. Jesus Christ.
Wow.
So.
Okay, I have a story. So, I believed in ghosts my whole life. Like I said, at 18, I knew about it. I didn't really do anything about it. I just kind of knew they were there. But I lived in this house in Kentucky that I used to see two spirits, a man and a boy. I used to smell a lady's perfume, but I never saw her. But one night I fell asleep on the couch and I had my head on the pillow, and I felt a hand as plain as day on my face, pushed my face into the pillow, and I, for the life of me, couldn't get my head out of the pillow. And all I could see out of the corner of my eye was just this blackness. And all I remember saying is, "God, please help me." And it just went away. So, I mean, I don't know if it was the lady who I never saw because I did smell the perfume or whatever. But when that happened, when I got touched by that spirit and it scared the shit out of me, I just was like, I got to know more about this stuff. So I find out what I'm dealing with, But yeah, that's my moment.
So what would be your numerical rating from 1 to 10 on the pant shitometer?
I would give that an 11. I mean, I couldn't move my face. He was trying to smother me in the pillow. It's pretty scary stuff.
Right.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you also have a pant shitometer story for us?
Mine is probably related to the investigation we were just talking about.
Okay.
This thing actually came after us after we left. And I think I got the brunt of it simply because I lived the closest. I was literally like maybe not even 2 miles away. And I woke up in the middle of the night and my house was flooding. So I think that was my moment because I don't know. I just knew that's what it was. So yeah, that was my moment.
Now, in your investigations, and this is something that has always interested / troubled me, is that in sort of interacting with these entities, sometimes they'll give indications of what happened in their past. Sometimes they'll give indications directly related to their passing. But what I'm always curious of is, do they give any indications of what the afterlife is? It seems to me that is always sort of a void in a lot of these investigations, that you don't really hear a lot about what their present state is, where they're actually, what plane they're existing on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you know what? They're not going to tell us that. My brother passed away 3 years ago, and I thought for sure I was going to find out what the hell was going on because my brother would communicate this to me. And if it was able to be done, I feel like he would have done that because he has visited me. My personal feeling is that when you get to the other side, you know everything, but we're just not supposed to know. It's not something we're supposed to know. I feel like if we could know, my brother would have told me.
Well, and just on another level of that, I think one of our biggest goals as a team is to keep that person's memory alive by finding out what their story was, not what their story is now. So we never really ask. We're more focused on telling their story of whatever their story was. We're more focused on telling their story.
Finding out why they're there.
And that makes a lot of sense. The level you're interacting with them obviously is a level that is, dependent upon the past and dependent upon that kind of trauma. So that makes a lot of sense. I know that in a couple of interactions that I've personally had, when I was very pointed and asked something very direct, the response that I got back more than once was, "It doesn't work that way." And it was just strange that I got that same terminology back whenever I tried to sort of dig about where they currently were, what they were currently experiencing. Was, again, it doesn't work that way. And it wasn't, said in a way that was demeaning. It wasn't said in a way that was even really all that cryptic. It was sort of like, when you asked your parents, like, well, I know you gave me 2 pieces of candy, but I'd really love 2,000 pieces of candy. And your parents just sort of gave you that look like, shit, it doesn't work that way. You don't get 2,000 pieces. Like, that was the same impression that I got. It was like I was asking this person, like, hey, can I have a piece of cake? And they say something like, can I have the entire cake? And then they look at you like, of course you can't have the entire cake. It's for the office. It's not just for you. It doesn't work that way. That was the impression that I got. So, as always, this is the fastest night on the internet. As soon as we're on, we're basically off. Which reminds me a lot of some of my early sexual explorations. We won't get into that tonight, however. Although we definitely have time to talk about it. It'll take all the next 2 or 3 minutes. So, if people are curious about where you're at, what you're currently doing, any investigations you've been on, investigations you're going to be on, what is the best way for them to either contact you or see where you're going to be as far as social media, stuff like that?
Well, first things first, you can check out our website, which is secondsightparanormal.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. Definitely always information there regarding all of our events and investigations, pictures, everything pretty much. So yeah, definitely those 3 spots are definitely top 3, secondsightparanormal.com and Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
And for those that might be listening either live or when this does become pre-recorded, what would you tell them if they're experiencing something right now? Like, what was the first thing that you would tell someone if they contacted you and just said, I've got something happening, I don't know what to do? What would be your, what would be the first thing that you would, impart upon them?
My first thing.
I always ask what happened, what kind of thing happens. You can use just a little tape recorder, to set up a recorder. You can ask questions. You can see if anything answers you, take pictures. I don't know. I just be aware of your family. I don't know. But are you talking about just to communicate with them, or do you want them to call us, or what?
Yeah, I mean, what would be the next step for them? Is it a process where you obviously ask them those questions and then, based on that, you say, hey, we need to investigate this a little further?
Yeah. So, if someone called us and they started telling me what was going on in their house, I would ask a lot of questions. When did it start happening? What kind of things happened? They're going to tell me. I'm going to be writing it all down. We'll find out if anyone's died there, if they know of any murders, if they know of anything, if they have any, pictures or anything like that. Erica actually is able to remote view a location. So after gathering the information, if one of us thinks that's something we might pursue, we'll let Erica kind of look in there and see if there's actually something present.
as always, we want to thank everyone who has been on with us tonight. We have had a great time with Valerie and Don from Second Sight Paranormal. As always, Rob's holding up his finger. Is that the one that's stinky?
No, not
At least
this
it's not
one.
his nose.
Not this one. I have
What do you
my
got for us,
two
Rob?
standard paranormal investigation questions. Okay, that I have to
Okay.
ask. I ask every paranormal investigator that comes on the show. Number one, are orbs ghosts?
Sometimes it's dust, but sometimes I think it can be ghosts. Because here's why I say that. Because I saw an orb that was not on film. I saw it with my plain eye float across the room, and that's the only
That's
reason I
different.
believe that it to be real. Yeah.
I think
that's
you're.
different.
I think I know what you're asking. I don't know. My scientific answer is I do not know. I just know what I see, and I know something's there.
Okay. If you see it with your eye, that would be considered a light anomaly. If you see it on still or rolling video, that would be my question, I guess, then.
I'm talking as far as photographs and rolling video.
Okay.
I've never seen anything with my naked eye.
I've only seen it once, and there was 3 other people in the room. And they all saw it.
And at what point does science play a role in your investigations when it comes to things like orbs, spirit box, the tools that are exploited by many TV shows? At what point does science break through?
Well, we're always trying to debunk everything. We're all skeptics. We use the equipment, and we try to see if we can debunk it or not. So there is a little bit of science to it.
Yeah.
We're not, we don't just assume that it's something just because we heard something. We're going to look into it.
Yeah. We're going to try to debunk it. We're going to try to recreate it if we possibly can. So that's basically our science.
Well, again, we can't thank you enough for being on with us. We had a fantastic time tonight. We hope that you'll come back and you can lie to us and tell us that you will, and we're absolutely fine with that because I will take that comfort.
Yes,
Thank
we'll be
you
back.
so much for having us.
Yay.
You
It was
answered one of my
been a lot of fun.
lifetime.
Glad you want us back.
You answered one of my lifelong questions, and here's my takeaway for the night. I get to watch people change clothes in the afterlife. Finally.
Yep. There you go.
Now that burning question's been answered, this might be your last show
Okay.
because I don't know where to go from here.
You can't get any better than that. I don't know what to do.
You have a couple moments off the air for us, Valerie and Don.
Yes.
Thanks everybody that stuck around tonight. Thanks everybody for their questions. Thank everybody who participated and engaged with us in chat across multiple platforms. As always, we'll be back next Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time with more Night Terrors Radio. Thanks so much, guys, for sticking around. Have a great night.
Bye, guys.